Hey everybody, it's the last Robo-Kai here. It's time for more Advanced Samurai Remnant. We are creeping ever closer to the second ending of the game. And in this particular moment, we are going to be heading towards the fight against Ushigosen. And before we do that, we're also going to see what Chiemon and Jeanne D'Arc Alter were up to when they went and killed the Tsuchimikado. You know, before they actually did the stabbing part. We saw the stabbing part. So joining me on this pre-stabbing part is, of course, Cool Guy.
Are we going to get a dissertation on what the motivations for stabbing were? Because I'm pretty sure we covered that already. But all right. Whatever.
No. We what we're actually getting is a little bit more of an explanation into something Chiemon says later after the assassination. He makes a weird off-the-cuff remark to Jeanne d'Arc, and when you'll remember basically what that comment was once we get it, and he says it at the end of this particular digression. So let's get stuck straight in.
土帝康弘の策謀により義は混迷を極める。その様をはため見て笑う知恵門。思惑渦巻き苛烈さを増す義にあって、彼もまた修羅の妄執を深めつつあった。
どうだって
マスターの見立て通りです。セイバーらは土帝のいる寛永寺
へ。やはりか。奴らが争うのは好都合だ。土帝もセーバーも好きなだけ噛み合えばいい。だが宮本伊織、てめえは別だ。
You, Miyamoto Iori, you piss me off just by existing.
世界るほどの血の匂いが漂う江戸であの野郎はなお眉根を寄せていることだろう。己の佐賀に嘘ついて善人ずらして満足か。口の端に垂れるよだれを俺が見逃すとでも。虫巣が走る。腐った皮は急いで剥ぎ取らねえ。
Right, with the added context we got from Iori himself, this entire rivalry of theirs makes a lot more sense simply because Chiemon's the only one who can clock exactly how much of a closeted psycho Iori is.
Masashi seems to know, but she also seems to know that, like, if this hadn't happened, he probably would have been able to, like, still exist like a normal person.
Right.
Also, like, I generally just, like, whenever Chiemon's talking, I fall completely silent. You could just imagine, like, he's there talking, and there's just, like, me leaning on, like, a wall with, like, my hands on my chin, elbows resting on the wall, just being like, yeah.
Just all ears to this man's ranting. I love the one that was charging at you from behind, like, I'm totally gonna do it this time, then there's just an interruption and he goes sailing off into the night. Looks like Team Gaki's blasting off again!
See, Sean's another one, it's just like, I feel like just a lot of her, like, attacks are really good, but for some reason it just sort of, always falls like a little flat and weird to me.
She never quite seems to have the same punch as a lot of the other servants that you control. Like, I get that that enemy health bars or something is like very heavily sustained. Like, it is the primary thing that the developers are clearly messing with when they want to experience when something goes on.
Yeah.
Reasonable amount of time. But it always feels like Jeanne has to put in a lot more effort to accomplish this. Like even in terms of just even in terms of just like disposing of cash of like this. Assassin was weird, but Assassin would have been done by now.
Not least of all because you can just zip him around as necessary.
Yeah. I also kind of feel like Assassin would have had his noble phantasm midway through that rather than right at the end, but, you know, whatever.
失礼しました
Chiemon.
Correct response, homegirl.
Chiemon's not even gonna expend the time to blow your ass up.
大方関西役が根回ししたんだろうぜ
It's always so funny. Chiemon's running around barefoot, and then you can just hear Jeanne just going clonk, clonk, clonk in full armor behind him.
Dude, she's got a really specific like strut forward when she's walking versus Chiemon's shamble too. It struck me at the like as the scene was opening in this episode.
行くぜ
Oh, here we go.
やはり罠ですならば
おい何の真似だ
マスターの手を借りるまでもありませんここは私にお任せを
So, you know, Lancer doing the sensible thing.
Sure.
Getting her master out of the trap and then, you know, fighting the trap herself.
のみが君臨するトリステス・ドゥ・ラビエル
Well, at least that did take out all of the trash and a layer of Azuma's shield. The damn thing that beat him to death.
Yeah, I think the general monsters never regenerated. It's only the crucible ones.
You say that, but there's been a couple of times when the game has just been like, no, I really want you to hang around, so this is 2 layers.
Well, unfortunately for us in this case, they don't do the shell thing, they do the other thing they like doing, which is just throwing more enemies at us.
Throwing more enemies at you. Alright, sure.
I mean,
6 of one, half dozen of another, I guess.
if you're gonna make a trap, yeah, better make it fairly comprehensive.
I feel like whoever set up this trap really didn't think it through by throwing fire things at the fire people.
Remember when we set the lady that burned at the stake on fire?
Yeah, and the dude whose sword is literally on fire. Like, let's throw fire at them. I'm certain that will be effective. Kind of feels like the thought process that went into the Freddy vs. Jason movie, where they tried really hard to make Freddy look like he had the upper hand for a moment because Jason apparently is now scared of drowning. Just forget the part where Jason cannot drown. Like, and then his like the bottom of Crystal Lake has been his home for like 10 movies at that point. But you know, never mind. Don't worry about it.
とっとと済ませるぜ
So much for that plan.
Huh. Stubborn asshole. But that's also Chiemon the TX.
我が槍慈しみを忘れた槍よトリステス・ドゥ・ラビエル
Okay, bye. Well, he almost fell.
Yeah, there's more coming though. Really overdid it on that one.
What? What was that?
That was me missing. That was me holding the charge on for too long.
Felt like the spirit bomb in Dragon Ball Z, only, you know, at the last moment you just dodge it.
Well, I mean, that's how the very first spirit bomb went, you know.
True. Okay. Homeboy just turned around, clocking you on the chin, and having Jeanne wail like that was funnier than I had prepared for. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I like it was less them like clashing against each other and more like basically just a force. You know, a lot of the other ones it's like everyone's bouncing their attacks off one another, but that one was just like, you know, pure pushback.
Yeah, that was more just like the force of will, and that's super cute. Thinking you're gonna get the better of Joan of Arc in that contest.
Yeah, this time.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
その嘆きをここに
Three noble phantasms later.
取り捨て
I was complaining about how it felt like she was building a noble phantasm, like too slow, and game went and made me a liar this time around. So you know.
なんさ、お前一体どういうつもりで？なぜ過剰に俺をかばう？
Literally her
サー
job.
バントである以上マスターを守るのは当然かと
加減があると言っている。さほどに俺は脆く見えるか。
Irrelevant,
英霊の身
okay.
と比べれば
You look like you've been run over like by several fires.
Yeah.
Like at several tire fires just ran over you.
なぜだ？なぜだ？なぜだ？
Not yet, really. It's a manifestation more of his survivor's guilt.
デウスに見放され、地獄へ向かう俺など守られてよい道理も守る価値もない。
I really do like that about Chiemon. He's got his survivor's guilt. He believes he's damned, and so he believes the path is just to drag people down to hell with him.
主があなたを愛さず救わぬとおっしゃるのならば代わりに私がどこまでも愛しましょうたとえこの手があなたを救えなくても共に地獄へ落ちることはできるでしょうから
Sorry, Sean, but this isn't. He's not a fake protagonist. This isn't the harem route.
Yeah, this isn't. That's not what he's here to hear. It's funny because the way that Jeanne responds to that is it's very first century Catholicism in that before. Like the 7 deadly sins that people might or might not be aware of are actually revised, and originally they were slightly different. And if you play what is it called, Limbus Company, there's a sin of like a sin called gloom, right? That refers to one of the original deadly sins, which is still considered a dire sin against hope, called despair. And you know, it's basically the belief that God cannot or will not save you. And so, like, what Chiemon's doing there is falling into the destructive despair that a bunch of first millennium preachers would just rail against over and over and over again. And very frequently, it came up in a lot of like early scenes. Somebody like this, you have no idea what to do for them, nothing to do, then they have to see the love of God through you. And that's exactly what Jeanne just did there. Like that was textbook first millennium Catholic. Which is probably one of the reasons why he hated seeing it so much. Why he's like, I can't stand messengers of God. Yeah, that. That's ripped from the headlines that he ostensibly cared so much about and is willing to die for. Whichever, dude.
And you know that love would make him waver on his path, and so he cannot accept it. So I talked about how I decided I was going to see if I could kill like one of these big crucible beasts without ever letting them regenerate their shell.
Oh yeah.
And it just so happens there was like one of those points you can use to like restore most of the meter for everybody. So I used that before I came here to do the Spell Slayer Blue Oni.
I'm waiting with bated breath. Oh, it looked like he was about to start doing something. And he was just like, nah, dog. Twin Sword EI. Go fuck yourself. Get stunned. Yep, and then we got Rogue Saber.
So the interesting thing is, although we talked about how the idea that Saber would likely have died at that point, Rogue Saber would have died at that point and never like been like seen again, and he doesn't appear in this story path, you can still summon him. So I'm not entirely sure if that's like what that means.
Yeah, because you did mention when we started this playthrough, when people die, like they become unsummonable again.
And even in New Game Plus, like Samson is gone, he's dead. You can't use it, you can't summon him.
Right. So that's actually an interesting note. I don't know, of like they never did really talk about the nature of Rogue Saber. Maybe it was just sort of like he's dispersed enough that he can't reform of his own volition. He only form when like soft summon. I'm making stuff up. Oh, just die, dude.
And there you
Just
go.
let it go. Thank God.
Full no-shell regeneration.
Good. Screw that guy.
He barely had a chance to do anything.
He did not get to play the game, which is always the game plan when talking about
Giant snake time. There's actually two things I wanted to throw here that I thought was kind of funny. Like the first is obviously the big snake, the crucible snake.
Yeah.
Who I'm not going to do nearly as well with. But
I mean, that was sort of a masterclass you put on there. So, like a repeat would be a little too greedy.
plus I don't have like the full bar. I could get it.
Right.
Like I could just eat food until I had full bar, but it's like no, it's just.
This kind of goes to what I was giving you crap for in the Discord the other day. Being an elixir guy, and you spent like a minute and a half lecturing me about how you weren't an elixir guy.
Yeah, I'm not an elixir guy. I take umbrage at that. I'm constantly using items here, but it's just like I don't need to use them. like the really high level items that like super buff you up, which I think I did use during the fight against Chiemon. Actually, if I think about it, so no, I'm not an elixir. I'm not like an elixir like hoarder. I used it.
The phenomenon of elixir guys is one of the funniest things in video games. Like it's one of those things that as a player, I kind of good lord, what was that fucking?
I don't know. This snake is just all over the place. Save me from this camera.
The snake's just make me into a handbag already. Holy Christ! Oh God, where was I? Oh right, as a player, I can kind of understand, like, okay, I might need that later, just because you absolutely have no idea what could potentially be coming later, and it could be your only way out. But as a designer, and a game maker, it stuns me that people will hold on to that for so long, even as they're dying. Like they will not use it, even as they're dying. They're just like, I might need this elixir later. Bro, you need it now. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
No, like I said when we spoke about it, I was like, probably the one game that sort of, this is really weird because I riposted him, but his attack is uninterruptible.
Yeah, and so he continues killing you.
Yeah, but when I play games that have like the Mega Elixir in Chrono Trigger, I actually tend to find I stock up a huge number of them, and then I use them during not even necessarily the final boss, but the last few final bosses, because they'll often they'll often do something that like reduces everyone's health and magic points down quite drastically, and so I just that's when I use them, and I'll be burning
Chrono
through.
Trigger is
Yeah.
what?
I was just gonna say I was just burning through so much of my like HP and MP's resources that I do make big use of the Mega Elixirs. So that's why when you said it, I was just like, no way.
Like the ultimate litmus test, even in my opinion, even though it was made for the Final Fantasy item. To me, Chrono Trigger is the ultimate litmus test. And the Mega Elixir truly is way more useful to everybody. And also, Chrono Trigger has some seriously badass bosses that will screw you up even before the final boss sequence, right?
Yeah.
Like the entire thing going through Zeal and all of the consequences from that, like on the Black Omen. There are so many freaking just insane bosses in there that will bend you over. Not to mention like the quote unquote final boss in the middle when you start fighting Magus. Like, holy crap! Like, yeah, he's a puzzle boss. Also, he will still kick your ass.
So, like, I feel like I've absolved myself of the accusation of being like the
you have
the
like I still thought it was hysterical that out of all of the things I've trolled you about over our years of working together, that's one of the biggest things that's ever slipped through your armor.
Look, Castella.
Castella. Oh shit!
But also,
boy.
look what we have when we dine in. Coffee.
Coffee. I still don't like it. Still a tea guy, personally. I'll take tea.
Yeah, so this is after we start on our path to fighting Shisetsu, and Li Shuen sort of stops us on the path. He's got a few extra things to say for us this time.
人の身で英霊と渡り合うほどの剣士、どれほどの鍛錬がその剣を磨き上げたのか。かか、面白い。主らの手にかかって消えるのもまた一興よ。
とアサシンは言っているのだが、より君はどうすべきだと思う？彼はユイに味方していたはぐれだし、ここで切っておけば後の憂いを立てるぞ。あ、切ろうか。
切らない。俺たちが切るべきはあくまでライダーだけだ。
Which actually saves you some grief in other ways because
そういうだろう
they're
と。
explicitly hoping that you kill servants.
そういうことだ、アサシン。
It is a wiser choice.
ここは貸しにしておく。
なるほど、そう来るか。いいだろう。この借りは必ず返す。情けをかけるなとごねるほど殊勝なサーバントでもないのでな。だが時にセイバーとそのマスターよ、一つだけ尋ねておこう。主らは英月の器を破壊し、義に幕を引くべく戦うのだと言ったな。
それがどうした？
確かに道理は通っている。だがその一年を貫くのは容易ではあるまい。どれほど優れた武人であっても、いや、武を求める者なればこそ欲は捨てられる。
Oh, that's what he's warning us about.
願いが叶うという抗いがたい誘惑が主に切って捨てられるのかと思ってな。
なるほど。
Indeed, when the power to get anything you want is in front of you, whomst amongst us could say that we wouldn't at least get very close to cracking and taking it?
まあ、今はそれでよ
In
しと
Iori's case, it's an easier question to
主の
answer
思い
simply
は
because
直
getting
接
rid
あ
of
の
the
娘
vessel
とぶ
and
つけ合う
getting
が
his
よい。
wish granted are close to one and
と
the
は
same.
いえ、わしもあれには情がある。借りを返すことに依存はないが、小説との戦いに手を貸しもせん。
案ずるな、アサシン。元よりそのつもりだ。決着は俺たちがつける。貴殿は手出し無用を守るだけでいい。
時に宮本伊織。
まだ何か？
This has a real Columbo
わしにはとても主が
Holy crap!
は見えんのだがな。
ああ、俺は清廉でも高潔でもないさ。
だろうな。ふん、自覚がある顔だ。
それなりには。
ならばいずれ向き合う日も来よう。武の本質とは筆境、殺の一文字に他ならん。背負わねばたどり着けぬ境地もあろう。遠く行くがいい。あの娘は浅草寺で主を待っている。
小説が浅草寺に？
主が果たしていずこへ向かうか。老骨は老骨らしく見物に徹するとするさ。
It's his age. Yeah, okay, man.
俺は
He likes playing up the grandpa role. He's kind of funny like that.
Yeah. It would be a lot more believable if he wasn't one of the most terrifying fighters in this game.
あいや
Just the explosiveness with which he moves still fucks with me. Like every time I see him.
Now, next part of the story is going to take us to the confrontation with Shositsu and Ryder.
じいさん
Because
大丈夫か？
now we've actually had spent a little bit more time talking to her than previously. She's going to have different things to say as well.
由々しき事態かもしれん。
来たな、宮本伊織。
小説。ライダー。やはりあの仲違いは芝居か？
余興だ。楽しんでいただけたかな。問答は無用。ゆい、英月の器はどこだ？貴様らがTsuchimikadoの屋敷より持ち去ったとすでに知れているぞ。それは耳が早い。今しがたここに設置したところだ。あとわずかばかりの魔力で器は満たされ、英月は輝く。故にセイバー、貴殿の魂、義の長尾を飾るにへとする。その前に改めて問う、宮本伊織。貴殿の願いは何だ？マスターとして貴殿は英月に
Tell him to fuck off. Iori.
願いは俺自身が叶えねばならないものだ。結果よりその過程に意味がある。英月が真に人の手では叶わぬ願いを叶えるのであれば、そうでなくては救われない者が求めるべきだ。だがそれは世にあってはならぬものだろう。正しき人の道であれば。
それが答えか。正しき人の道。なるほど。清廉な響きだ。貴殿らしい。
No, he just doesn't get arrested for killing people.
宮本伊織。
Yeah.
Because then he can't kill people.
俺は清廉とは程
It's a
遠い
lot harder to kill a policeman.
小説
I'm not a selfless man.
まったく甘い。君は甘い男だ、伊織。刃を交える前に琴の葉を交わすなど。
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold your damn
そうかも
horses.
しれん。
Because there's going to be a much larger horse that
甘い
you
男ゆえに
will be unable to
こう
hold
も言
here
う。
in a minute.
俺を清廉という貴殿、
Bull horse.
優位小説よ。その胸に抱く願いは何だ？俺には貴殿こそが清廉の聖堂を歩む人物であるように見える。なのに何故英月の義などにふける。英月の俺は
The entire idea is just like you take a look at it, That looks like Satan power to me.
邪法であろうと構
That's
うものか
a
よ
particular spin on this that's especially
世の
funny to
過ち
me.
のすべてを正す
That looks like the devil's work.
真に平らかなる世を作
In
り
your
出す
cup where you shall say it too.
それはまた
This still more or less tracks the way it was previously. And we're going to
Yeah,
skip over
yeah.
the Ushigozen reveal and most of the ley line cutting fights that they did against the Divine Beast, but there is one significant moment that happens that I will leave in that happens
過ちを正す
during that sequence. Because it sets the stage for what's going to happen later.
私の作られし命に宿りしただ一つの願いである
作られし命
Oh,
貴
this is
殿は知らぬままだ
before
った
the
な
fact that she's a homunculus has been revealed.
私は作られた体に命を与えられし存在ホムンクルスだ
I made an offhand comment about what, like, Morisuiken's plan was involving Shosetsu. And I looked into it a little, and the crossover with Fate Grand Order suggests that he had a special magical command phrase involving Shosetsu that would have basically allowed her to mass reproduce herself. Not like giving birth, but basically just like dividing, I guess. And it would have just kept happening until humanity was replaced entirely with Yushosetsu's. Which might sound really
That is
fucking
hysterical.
weird. But I guess
Homie had a would you kindly buried into Yui Shosetsu.
with the plan to basically replace humanity with a basically someone who is, not a bad person by any stretch of the imagination, someone with a strong sense of justice, but it was her feelings towards, instead of replacing people, but uplifting them instead and making things better for everybody, that shook him to his core, and so Morisuiken abandoned his plan. That's why he talks about how she defeated him. It's basically just against her resolution, and even here, like, it's impossible for Iori and Saber to really rebuke what she's saying, because what she is aiming for is truly something that is impossible, something that needs a miracle, and it's really hard to just argue against what she's trying to do.
Well, it's hard to to argue against it's hard to argue against the end.
Yeah.
They absolutely can argue with the mean, but
Yeah,
you know
that's ultimately why the
in
fighting
the
starts,
In
yeah.
the face of how passionate Shosetsu is about this, it's a little bit difficult to maintain that clarity in the moment.
And I think I said it last time as well, but her voice acting knocks it out of the park.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing sense of just the pain she like feels just thinking about it.
But yeah, she's just an equal amount furious and sickened.
私はここに英月を求める
わかった貴殿の願い人の身では叶うまい道理が通っている貴殿の願い自体
Definitely see a lot that's wrong with the wish itself, simply because you're just like, well, I want to right all wrongs, okay? Who defines what's right and what's wrong then? Oh, really? You?
唯一小説
One person defining what's right and what's wrong. That's definitely always worked out in the past.
Yeah. At the very least, like, out of all the candidates I've ever seen making that claim, Yoshisetsu seems like she might be the one closest to the not completely butt-fucking everything over.
Yeah, like she's definitely in the top, I'd say, like 3% of people who aren't completely up their own ass when they say something like that. But also, if she wasn't completely up her own ass, she would probably see that, you know, there's no such thing as omniscience, knowing everything and being able to judge everything. And that's absolutely what you would require to pull that off.
So yeah, this is the one different bit that happens.
いけない無事ですね マスター
She basically took a divine thunderbolt for him, which is fucking her up a
すぐに
bit now.
後を追います
He's still mad about it.
あまり待たせるな。
ありがとうございます
And now, here's the moment instead of Rogue Saber coming in during the fight.
私に貸しっぱなしで行くのは許さないわ
紳士侵入者を潰せ逃がさない
Yeah, so this fight takes place in an entirely new location, so we're going to be showing a little bit.
追うぞよりおっと二人ともここにいたのね
Oh, I know that voice.
She has a tendency of doing that, doesn't she? Getting her voice question marked, and you going, I know who that is, and then she pops up.
Yeah, like, speaking of voice actresses who knock it out of the park, like, Musashi's voice actress has a very specific lilt and cadence to her performance that is very unique to Musashi.
あれを抑えればいいのねまったく師匠使いが荒いんだから男武蔵もさぞ苦労したことでしょう
弟子使いの荒い師に似たのかもしれません直感ですがおそらくそちらのいろいろ
何か言いました
Huh.
ではあれの対処はお任せします
And certainly, I will say, Musashi has fought bigger. I'd say general size speaking, I think that Divine Beast is probably a little smaller than Ivan the Terrible in the second Lost Belt.
Ivan the Terrible, you say?
Yeah, Ivan the Terrible fused with like a giant, huge demonic mastodon.
I feel like I need more words on this particular story.
Well, like I said, Lost Belts are basically stories where the entire concept of humanity has changed. Sorry, it was in the first Lost Belt, not the second. The first Lost Belt is where basically a horrible winter sets in, and the only way for humanity to actually be able to survive is to fuse themselves with demonic beasts. As a result, what humanity is changed, but the circumstances haven't really changed much either. And of all of them, the king of the Lost Belt, the one who basically initiated most of this, the most powerful of all of them, is Ivan the Terrible. And he's kind of semi-fused into an incredibly large demonic beast. He has his own body, which by all accounts is also like a giant mammoth. But he basically just sort of... He looks absolutely like tiny in this thing. Considering he's
The basis
also a
that
rider.
you have to fuse with some crazy nonsense to survive helps justify this entire thing a little bit more. When you originally said it, I was just sort of like, okay, so why exactly did this happen? Just fucking Ivan the Terrible was like I'm not bugfuck insane enough. So I need to have a mammoth to make me more crazy.
Well, let's just say, I haven't even begun to describe the absolute lunacy of that entire sequence, but it's great. Like, I will spare you it, but basically the concept behind the Lost Belts is essentially, like, they're basically pruned futures for humanity, and in pretty much all of them, humanity is either wiped out or utterly changed in some way. Like, I talked about Lost Belt 3. Well, Lost Belt 3 was humanity had essentially become one person. Everybody else that was alive had essentially become a tool to keep this one human going.
Discussion.
Yeah. The second Lost Belt is like the Earth is so fucking torn up and destroyed thanks to Ragnarok going off of script. that it just can't flourish, it can't survive, it's trapped in like horrible stagnation. Lost Belt 4, the cycle of death and rebirth that the worlds are supposed to go through, as per like Indian mythology, is supercharged to fuck. And occurs much quicker.
Everybody just does the local equivalent of get born, live for half an hour, shit a baby, and die.
Well, in essence, like the idea is that there's the part where everything is great and fantastic. There's the part where things are normal, but sort of getting worse, and then there's the part where like hell breaks loose, and the cycle is supposed to be like millennia long, like longer than that. In the
so
mythology.
This is collectively just supercharged rather than individually. That is hysterical.
And speaking of, Ajna is the perpetrator of this, is the Lost Belt King of the fourth Lost Belt.
Oh,
he's an Ajna who, after the Mahabharata killed way more people, essentially started devouring the gods and became the only god.
Saber! 我が神明大和武尊、嘆きに疲れ破壊をもたらす者よ。その改ま一刀にて沈め立てまつる。雨、土、わだつみ、嵐、炎、天地自然の諸力をここに。会見、雨の村雲の剣。神の握り玉。まばゆいな。
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we've covered that, but it's nice to be reminded, I suppose.
連れて行け。はっ。
待て。小説をどこへ？
宮本より関わるな。この女の身柄は我らが預かる。
Giovanni's face somehow looks craggier than usual.
難儀な男。
He's also
that is the understatement of the year.
He's also keenly aware Iori could kill him like 5,000 times before like he finishes a sentence like that.
西洋魔術を統括せし時計塔の総意である。そしてホムンクルスは西洋魔術。特に錬金術によって生まれ出るものなれば、我らコイエット家が預かるが筋。と、お嬢様は仰せだ。
ドロテア殿は知っていたのか。小説がホムンクルスなる身であると。
They do tend to have some pretty obvious tells if you know what you're looking for.
And yeah, especially when you are an expert in the craft that
私の戦はここまでだ。だが、それでよかったのかもしれぬ。ライダーのことの葉を耳にして、いくらか思うところもあった。私はきっと急ぎすぎたのだ。故に 私の願いもまた世を乱す過ちに落ち果てた。
Procedure is important, saith the
貴殿の理想は
historical
正しい
magistrate.
と
And I believe the rushing part might simply just be because her lifespan is finite, and they were already talking about her being, you know, looking quite young but being quite old. So she's probably getting closer to that use-by date, unfortunately.
真に平らかな
She's
世を
definitely never
生き
gonna
る
have
の
another
思い
chance like this one.
俺にはうまく
So
言えな
like
い
it
が
is understandable,
とても
even if it was still a terrible
美
idea.
しく見える。
貴殿、
英月に頼らずとも貴殿の願いはいつか叶う。人としての正しき思いが
Sorry, my thought immediately went to World War II. Oops.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, righteous ideals cannot go unrewarded. They can and routinely do.
Yeah, well, like, neither of these two people will be alive to see how the entire planet kind of goes off the deep end in the 20th and then possibly even the 21st century.
Iori だな。
People are always going to have something to fight
宮本
about.
伊織。
Like it's that is such a literary trope that it's
私の手を
almost quaint to see them
くれないか。
trying to commiserate over the converse.
思いが
I don't know why, but the way Iori is drawn in this sequence just cracks me the fuck up.
私は
It's his lean backward. Like it looks like Shosetsu is trying to lean in to get some kind of partnership from him.
確かに
And he's leaning backward like, "Yo, girl, you're giving me a
裏切る前
rash." And they're not meaning to. He should be standing up
Saber
straight.
では
It's just the
江戸
perspective
が
of
生
the
前
picture.
だが世の平穏がために戦う
It's also because you can't see his face, I think, as well.
小説
And, you know, we've got more of an idea of what kind of a person he is, so it's hard to imagine what face he's making right now and what, like, Shisetsu's getting out of it.
そう言ってくれるか。
But basically, we're on this swaggy Iori route at the moment. Like,
では
Yeah, we're on the route where he's routinely admitting to people that he's kind of a psycho, and a bunch of more people are verbally clocking that he's kind of a psycho. So having Shosetsu not clock that is kind of
あ
funny.
のような役所
Dorothea.
No,
as
it's
well.
not okay to make a promise like that, but also there's nothing more you can do.
Yeah, it should be gone in a few years. She won't be seeing up slack enough, becoming an administrator or
だか
something.
ら
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
私が言いたい
You
のは
like making
そういうことでは
promises to
なく
people who were dying in order to make their final months or year or whatever.
ああ
easier.
もう大
That's
変
literally what just
無理
happened
に
here.
来なくていいって言ったのに
Running this poor girl around in those shoes she wears, goddamn.
Don't push
武
yourself
蔵は
so
微笑んだ
much. Like the fact that she's able to push herself at all with shoes that tall makes her a better person.
行こ
than
う
me.
セイバー師匠が何か言いたげだ
Would be able to make it 2 steps in those fucking things.
さてと
This is gonna basically just see into what we know, though it does sort of do it a little differently.
ってところかしら
This is the duel between
Yeah.
Musashi and Iori, right?
ご助力
Yeah. And while the duel itself and everything afterwards doesn't really change that much,
うんうん
I didn't think
こ
so.
のお礼はうどん
you
に
know,
入で
this
受け
this
取り
entire
ましょう
sequence is definitely a thing. So I might as well use this opportunity to talk a little bit more about Ajuna,
セイバー君でしょ
Sure.
because
それに情報
Ajuna is a
も何も
really
ね
interesting character
私が
insofar
したこと
as
だもの
like I said, he's part of the
Oh,
Mahabharata,
because
which is the big story about the two competing, you know, branches of a family trying to become kings. And he's part of the family that gets exiled. They lose a bet against the heir apparent
この江戸で
when they invite him to their home and essentially mock him because they've got these floors that are like
武蔵ちゃん
almost like you could fall through them. They're like these beautiful glass floors, that, like so much so that you can't even see the floor. And he kind of freaks out when he first gets there. and they'll laugh at him for it. And then later he sees a pond in the room, and he assumes that they've got the glass over it and walks into the pond, and again they mock him. And so he arranges this bet, and he makes use of his friend Kana. And so Kana is Arjuna's nemesis in the story, which is he is. I'm just gonna look up the term for how they describe him, but he's somebody who's he's basically the son of the sun god Surya, and the princess Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas. And so he's a demigod of royal birth, but he's of low class, or of a class that is not as high. And so he is joined. He's sort of joined at the hip to all of this, and he's sort of exploited by the Kaurava family, because when he's like taking part in a competition, Arjuna says about Kana, "I'm not going to compete against this guy. He is beneath me." And Kana is an incredibly talented, incredibly strong individual, and he never lets go of that. Ever.
Yeah, right.
And so he and Arjuna basically multiple times throughout the entirety of the story leading up to the big battle butt heads quite a lot. There's even a moment where Arjuna takes part in a competition, and he just... So probably the best way to put it is that he sort of reverses the positions, where he not knowing who Arjuna is, refuses to duel him because he's lower, and it's kind of like this weird sort of reverse to show that Kana's kind of lost his way. But at the same time, Kana does a lot of things throughout the story, and he's noted for being like a really good person. He gives away some of his like most powerful treasures and basically ends up making him immortal, which ultimately leads, along with like some curses he accrues along his journey, leads to his death. And probably like the big thing is in the Mahabharata, he basically ends up being put in charge of the war effort because so many people have died by this point. And Kana does not get along well with like the guy who's supposed to drive his chariot. And it's kind of interesting because it goes back to a similar thing with the Celts. We had the idea of, like the Ku basically got killed because they developed javelins to kill his horses, his chariot driver, and himself. Well, in this particular case, Kana is in complete like disarray with like the people around him at this point, because they look down on him, and he is sort of failed himself as well. And by the end of it, he's kind of feeling like he knows it's coming and kind of regrets the path that's led him to this point. But what ends up happening is he duels Arjuna in the battle on their chariots, and as part of this curse for something that he had done, the wheel of his chariot comes off. And so Kana dismounts because the guy who's driving it, like, I think either leaves or won't do it. I can't remember exactly, and it's like looking through Wikipedia to remind myself of this. It's not worth it. But essentially, Kana gets out to reattach the wheel himself. And generally speaking, if you're an honorable warrior, you allow the person to do that, especially if they're sort of in a duel like that. However, Arjuna's son is killed earlier in the battles under those circumstances, and with anger over the loss of his son, Arjuna kills Karna. And so that's kind of like how the story goes. Like, I'm really sort of brushing over like a huge amount of it, but basically, like, the core of these two characters flows into Fate Grand Order. Or when one is in the story, very rarely does the other not appear, and they very much, even in Fate Grand Order, where they're ostensibly allies in a lot of cases, they are still fairly antagonistic towards each other. It's really quite interesting.
The entire thing, when you when you're telling this story, reminds me very much of the Romulus and Remus story on Western in Western storytelling. Romulus and Remus, they're like, obviously in this case they're not actually brothers. Romulus and Remus are brothers, but there's incredibly deep a history of these two characters hating each other. Just like slight against slight against terrible terrible offense to terrible offense to just unforgivable sin to unforgivable sin, and everything just keeps piling up on everything that came before it until you have no idea who's a good person anymore. And the answer is neither. Nobody's a good person. Nobody's a good person in these sorts of revenge gone wrong stories. That's the point.
今この時だけは忘れさせてくれ。頼む。
Let me forget about the waxing moon and just be a psycho who really wants to murder people. Like, not in a weird way. Just I really want to be really good at killing people. That's my perfection. Okay, just chill.
いおり、君が義を戦う理由、君が心に抱く願いはきっと。
It's kind of really just sort of hard to sort of try and sort of outlay what goes on with these characters because they have such like a deep laid down history. When I talk about Kana and Arjuna, like again, apparently it's being translated. So if you wanna pick up on all of that,
eventually I will. Like when it gets translated, like that. It sounds like such an incredible story that I won't be able to pass it up. Like, it's one of the primary weak points in my psyche. Like you can stun lock me eternally by telling me a decent story.
冗談とは言わぬのだな。好きだぞ、武蔵。私もよ。
セイバーに手出しはさせません。
But yeah, like the big tragedy of it all is it ends up, you know, like as I said, like they only really sort of reveal that he's like a half. So like spoilers, everybody, that he's like a half brother to Arjuna and the others, and yeah, he was basically, you know, dumped off on a poor family.
Oopsie poosums.
And like Connor is by all accounts like a guy who's basically a good, honest person who has a gigantic streak running down his back concerning you know, inferiority, the treatment of him regarding his his family origins, his social class, things like that. And so he's quick to bite back when people like take shots at him. But otherwise, he's primarily written as a true, good, generous man who other people should like, you know, should look for an example in attempting to uphold the entire concept of being a good person in life. Even though he makes a lot of mistakes, he still tries and does his best, and it's really kind of interesting. Like you said, there aren't any like inherently evil people in this story. They are complex individuals who, and is a substantially like an irreconcilable difference, that is who gets to rule the kingdom, as per an agreement that was made, which was originally being made because they thought, oh shit, the king can't have any children, and ultimately it leads to such a ridiculous amount of death that oh my god.
Yeah. Succession wars, always an issue, no matter what culture you're around.
Yeah, so next time, we actually stop all the jumping around. We're going to... Well, not all of the jumping around, but we're essentially not going to be skipping any of the fighting or any of the anything like that. All the scenes will be happening in order because we are about to kick off the end game for the route that we started by pursuing the snake, essentially. So, until then, I've been the Last Robokai.
And I have been Cool Guy.
And we'll see you all next time for more Fate Samurai Remnant.